All right, we're
You got
live
some
and we're live.
Spicy takes tonight, man.
We're live because we almost got into this conversation behind the scenes, and it was like, you know what? No, stop. Let's go live. Let's go live because we were, getting things together and organizing and whatnot, and now we're live. We're going to start talking about this. I don't know the best way to start or to process through the rest of this. So here's what I'm going to say. Took a lot of notes. My notes are on mostly the first two episodes.
Hold on for a second, Bacon. I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting a double talk. I'm dumping.
You getting feedback?
I'm hearing you and me both on delay.
I'm not hearing anything.
I might have to. Wow.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing you, but I'm not hearing a duplicate or anything like that. Is it? Do you possibly have YouTube open in the background?
Let me exit and come back.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry about the hold up, everyone. See, this is the kind of stuff we were trying to work through before we went live, and then we got into the conversation. It was like, oh, let's just go live, and so now, here we are. Yeah, I guess I should talk to you. What am I doing sitting here being silent? So how's everyone doing? I see Micah, you're here. Do you have a general take on the last act or the scene in general? Scene. Season. I'm going to do that again all stream. I'm going to confuse my terminology again. But I hope that Sable can get this taken care of. I don't want to start on my notes without him here, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see how it happens. If I have to, I will. I prefer not to. He might just be restarting his computer. So I guess I'll give a quick rundown, really, of my opinions of the first two. Oh, great. Here he is.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and there's no echo.
Okay, perfect.
I just quit StreamYard entirely and came back. So I don't know what was going on.
So it was a StreamYard conflict then.
Maybe.
I mean, it happens.
Maybe it was StreamYard and YouTube. I have no idea.
Yeah, it happens.
Regardless, I can hear you fine. So.
Well, good. So, okay. I was floundering before you came back, so I'm glad you came back. I was going to review just briefly my opinions on the first two acts of this season.
Okay.
Act 1.
Sure.
Very
Let's
negative.
There.
Well, Act 1, very negative. Act 2, very positive. Act 3, I don't yet know. I know there are some things about Act 3 that I hate. Like, absolutely, indefatigably hate. And it's not a matter of Arcane, it's a matter of the specific device used. Sometimes it's a matter of Arcane, but a lot of the times it's a matter of the specific device used.
How so? What do you mean? Like, what are some specific examples?
Alternate.
By the way, everybody on the chat.
Alternate universes suck.
100%. Okay. Yes.
So,
100%.
But let's not start there. Start there. Okay. I want to. So
everybody in the chat. Vast spoilers. For
yeah. Super spoilers. It's in the name. If you've been here with us for the past two streams, where this is the day after the day after the episodes drop on Netflix. This is the last 3 episodes, 7, 8, and 9. It's the finale. We are going to spoil the ever-loving crap out of this. Yeah, season 2. We're going to spoil the ever-loving crap out of this. But I don't want to start with the episodes, okay? Because there are some overarching things that I noticed.
I'm very interested what kind of themes you can pull out of this.
Well, the theme, it's funny because I started on time, but that's not the theme. It's a part of the theme. What I ended up on theme was freedom, sub-unity. So the overarching theme is freedom. Freedom from time, freedom from the cycle, freedom from your blood, freedom from fate, freedom from being trapped, right? But even then, there are several scenes that go against that theme, which is odd. And then
it only happens in the last 2 episodes.
Right. And then I have sub-unity, meaning there is a strong sub-theme of reunification. Zaun unifying, and then on top of that, unifying with Piltover, everyone coming together to fight the threat. Like, there's a very strong sub-theme of unity, but I don't think that that's really it's not really the focus. And so there is a little bit of deviation from that theme as well. But I would say the overarching theme is freedom, even though there is just drastic, incredible splits from it. But that's not where I want to start, okay? Where I want to start is what I'm calling the problem of Isha. So Isha, unfortunately, so here's what happened. Isha was introduced as a Jinx analog, right? Like the first scene we see her in, she's making a leap of faith that she is then saved from. Now, in the first season, Jinx is saved by Vi, and in the second season, Isha is saved by Jinx, though unintentionally she lands on Jinx. But we can assume that, Isha would have probably suffered a great deal had she not landed on Jinx. And then the end of Isha's arc is her pointing a gun to the sky and creating a huge explosion just like Jinx. So major events of that parallel Jinx bookend Isha's story, right? And then literally everything in between is just how Isha relates to Jinx, which means Isha's not a character.
Yeah.
Isha is aspects of Jinx. So she's Jinx's innocence.
She started to become she had the inklings of becoming a character in Act 2.
Yeah, but then they shut that down.
Got there,
right.
She believes it.
And then if you take so what I'm saying is that Isha was always meant to be this catalyzing agent for Jinx.
She
right?
is a vehicle with her.
Jinx, hold on. Let me just get the end of the thought. So Jinx lives with her and teaches her and learn things from her, regains some grounding, regains some normalcy. And then when Isha sacrifices herself, which is one of the themes of strength that Ambessa mentions, but this is, I think it's very unsuccessful. So Isha sacrifices herself. That catalyzes Jinx, who now is she's crossed a threshold clearly in this third act. And so that is all Isha was ever intended to do. So reflecting back on the whole season, back to the beginning, Isha is now definitively not a character. She is an accessory. She is a cause for Jinx to evolve, but doesn't actually evolve herself. And I think that this is not good character writing. Additionally,
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. You said even worse.
I'm just going to drop a sentence in here. She's less than an accessory. She is a mere vehicle for the plot.
Yes. Now, on top of that, if we reflect on most, not all, but most of the new characters introduced this season, they all follow this same pattern.
100,000%.
Now, they don't necessarily bookend like Isha does with major events to parallel another character in the series.
Development.
But they show up. They are there for a time to spur other characters into action, to have someone to bounce particular feelings and emotions off of, and then they evaporate as quickly as they were introduced. We have no emotional connection to them. None of them are really characters, and I think that this ends up being very damaging to the overall watch because we now realize our time has been wasted in the investment if you were able to invest it all. So
they are there to die in the place of the characters who have the name recognition.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
That's
it. I have needed more consideration of character and narrative. And so it really does kind of fall flat with regard to the new characters that had been introduced. And
compare the characters in season 1, Benzo, Marcus, and Silco, who were there to die for the progression and advancement of other characters. But we didn't know that because it wasn't telegraphed when they were introduced. They had actual arcs of their own, and we could get invested in them and understand their own motivations.
Yes.
And when they died, it felt like something because we understood how it impacted the characters who we were following.
Yes, and I think that this is indicative of, and this is something that I discussed with Jax, who hadn't seen Arcane. Pardon me, they haven't seen season 1 or season 2, but I had a conversation with them and explained the way I viewed how the season unfolded, and Jax offered this. Based on what I was explaining, they said that it seems to be that there's an imbalance, and it's a type of imbalance that is typical of the plot drive being detached from the character drive. So we get character development scenes and we get plot progression scenes when they should be unified. They're unified in the first season. They are not unified
season, they
here.
are one and the same, 100%.
Yeah. And so they're not unified here. And this is
characters' decisions and motivations drive the plot.
Yes.
Not the other way around.
Yes. And so it's very, very unfortunate because even though, and I guess now we can kind of get into the episodes, right? So like, here's my note on episode 7. This is my final note on episode 7.
I cannot express how deeply I loathe episode 7.
See, here's the thing, though. I
hate it.
Here's the thing. I have a whole lot to say about episode 7. My final note is the most emotionally satisfying episode then, sadly, is one that doesn't matter to the story at hand. And ultimately, how Echo returns is not relevant, nor where he was, just that he returns. So it's an entire episode spent on an emotional payoff that was a very solid, strong emotional payoff.
Really?
But was completely immaterial. Well, first of all, I don't like alternate universes. They suck. And the reason that alternate universes suck is because what usually happens. Now, maybe there is someone out there who has written an alternate universe and it has been fantastic and it will completely obliviate all of my issues with this particular device. But the reason that I don't like alternate universes is because you can take Spider-Man, you can take Peter Parker, throw him into another universe and make him completely not Peter Parker and still keep his powers as Spider-Man, claim that he's Spider-Man, write stories about this Spider-Man, but unfortunately, the essence of the character is their characterization. And if you change their characterization, they are no longer that character.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're not dealing with the characters. You're dealing with these like ephemeral spin-off, just nothings. They're not anything of consequence to any given story.
No consequence whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is my okay. Oh boy.
But the emotional payoff, I'll tell you what.
Nah.
There's a lot. If you and I was watching it, and it most of this story, my very final note. Okay. Let me see here. Where is it? Where the hell did it go? It was just here. I thought it was my last one. Give me a second. It says blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. I got it. I moved it up because it was so important. This is my final note on the series, but I moved it up. So this is a pastiche. This is speaking of this act. And I hadn't really thought that it could go retroactive to the beginning of the season. It's possible that it could. But I think that this final act is a pastiche of strong, effective character moments, tenuously held together by extremely flimsy circumstance.
That's pretty good.
It's very, very, it is way too quick. It is way too underdeveloped. You're asking me to have an emotional investment in something you haven't given me the time or the information to make the investment on.
We talked about this last week, right? How are they going to get all of this wrapped up in 3 more episodes? It's like they're trying to cram too much in, and I don't think they can do it. And we both said that we were ambivalent and hopeful, and the ambivalence is played out, and in my case at least, the hope was not.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask.
I agree with that. I think the ambivalence is borne out. The hope is not borne out. I think that it is. Oh God.
Okay. Let me ask you.
Many misses, but go ahead. I've talked on for enough. So you go ahead. Episode 7.
No, I really want to know, what about episode 7 landed for you? Because literally almost nothing did for me. But let me ask you.
So I will say this. Within the context of the story that we were being told, nothing lands because it's an alternate universe and I couldn't shake that.
Exactly.
But when I watched it when I watched it as if it was its own story, without anything that came before and without leading into anything after, there are some strong, effective character moments there. Sometimes it isn't. Now, obviously, I can't completely remove myself from the knowledge that I've gained over the course of the past season, right? Or 2 seasons. I just can't do that. But I can sit down and I can watch it as best I can in absence of the critical eye that I've turned toward it as it relates to everything that's come before. And I thought that there was. Let me go back to my notes. Let me see here. So. I say this is an intermission episode. It is possibly the worst time for an intermission. It is wasting time, and we know it.
Yes.
Because none of this is real, or at least none of it is our fractal universe.
None of it matters. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. None of it matters.
Yes, none of it matters. And then it
has zero impact on what we actually care about.
I say still, where would it have better fit? And the emotional impact is important because it's priming us for the end of the series.
If we'd had something like this in episode 3 of this season for maybe the first or last half of an episode, not the whole episode, it might have landed better.
I don't disagree with that. I think that generally speaking, this entire season, without any rewrites, should have been ordered differently to allow for that emotional unpacking that I needed to get to.
It is very obviously leading to a 3rd season, which we now know in hindsight in retrospect, will never happen, right?
Right.
But the freaking, okay.
Right. And so what I say is, I can forgive this. And it's not, and I get that. This is not a situation where I am asking anyone to forgive it. I stand 100% in understanding of this reaction. 100%. I get why you don't like it, because I don't like it for those very same reasons. But for some reason that is unnameable, it is an intangible reason, I can forgive this episode. But my next notes.
Let me ask you. Okay. Well,
my next notes. Oh, well, go ahead. Ask me a question. Go ahead.
No. Go to your notes before I start just ripping things to shreds. Please.
Okay. So I say I don't like flashes sideways either. Period. That was it. It's like, don't flash me sideways. I don't care. Tell me what's going on with the character.
That's a big problem with this season, is they keep showing us stuff we've already seen.
Yes. Don't do it. I don't need it.
Stop wasting my
No one needs
time.
it. Yeah, yes, it is a big waste of time. Flashbacks, flash forwards, flashbacks. I don't like flashes, period, end of story. Sometimes it can be done well enough so that my ire
stuff that happened down. 1 or 2 episodes previous, they're showing it to us again.
Yes.
Do you really think our memory is that short? Do you really have that much time to waste in this 9-episode season that's got to?
Yeah.
That you already wasted 3 episodes worth
of. My next note is too much vomit.
No, please.
This is when Jace threw up. This is when Jace threw up on the heels of Echo throwing up.
Everyone's throwing up in this season.
It was like, this is too much vomit. I don't need this much vomit. I get it. Everyone feels sick.
It's like 3 or 4 characters throwing up in this season.
So I think this is why I can forgive it, right? What I mentioned here, and this is a little bit to do with my conversation with Jax before I spoke to them. I say this episode is character driven, not plot driven. And you can tell that definitively because it is completely detached from the plot, right? Completely removed from the plot. I also say, but this feels jarring because it's all been plot driven up to this point. So when we finally do get that character drive, that is what provides this imbalance. It feels weird, right? Because, and it should feel weird, because in a plot driven story, there's often nothing to it. And in a character driven story that doesn't have structure, where the character interaction doesn't revolve around pushing the story forward, like this episode, they can feel disjointed. But I think that I was so starved for that character drive from the first 2 acts. That's why I was willing to forgive this episode, even though it is completely meaningless in the grand scheme of Runeterra and the lore of the show, because it happens in an alternate universe. And
all right,
we've already been through that.
All right. I gotta cut you off here. I know that
Go for it. No. Go for it.
Let me ask you, maybe, hopefully, I don't know. First off, halfway through the episode, I realized that everything I was watching through the entirety of episode 7 was going to be an utter waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And given what we talked about, how little time they had left to make something meaningful happen,
mm-hmm.
I find that unforgivable. But let me also ask you this. Let me ask you this. How can you look at the entirety of the show up to this point and then take season 7 of episode 2, episode 7,
season 2. I know
season 2, telling us that everything would have been better, immeasurably better, if Vi had just died at the outset? And how can you not look at that and say that that undermines everything the show's about? I loathe this episode for that reason.
No.
I loathe it.
I think that you're right, and I think that the reason that I'm able to forgive it is because I am watching it.
Not
I'm
only
divorcing it from the whole series.
And here's the thing. Amanda Overton wrote this episode, just like she wrote episode 1. She wrote it solo. She has a solo writing credit. She may have saved season 1 as a story consultant, but I told you when we did our review of Act 1 that she had the solo writing credit on episode 1, and I didn't think she should have been allowed. And I absolutely 100% guarantee that she should never have been allowed to touch a freaking script for this show, because she absolutely destroyed it in episode 7 of this season. I cannot abide it. I loathe it beyond all measure. It is an absolute refutation of every single theme that has been going on through the entirety of the show, both in the entirety of season 1 and in season 2, for what so far they managed to engage in a theme up to this point until episode 7 for season 2.
Look, I'm not going to try to change your mind on that, right? Like, I hear what you're saying. I have no disagreement. I'm just, for some reason, and again, it's an ephemeral, very unsatisfying reason.
It's a cozy episode. It's a fun episode.
Yeah, it's very cozy.
If I were able to, and I have, disconnected my brain from the entirety of everything else that Arcane has ever done, and just engaged with it on its own level as a piece of fan fiction.
Yeah,
that's essentially what it is. I could go on. I could go on Archive of Our Own.
Like, come along, come sit by the fire, come warm your hands, come, drink some tea, be warm, be cozy. If you can approach it that way, which I guess I'm able to, absent everything else that's come before, then
I'm fine. I'm fine with engaging this on Archive of Our Own as some kind of hard comfort fan fiction or whatever the hell else you want to label it as. That's fine. I cannot abide it as part of an official part of the actual storyline.
I think it is absolutely a failure as an episode for season 2 of this series. I think that it is improperly placed as and it's very much an intermission episode,
especially after where 4, 5, and 6, like 4 started, and then 5 and 6 really engaged with what we kind of knew was Arcane, right? Like you and I both said, and Doug said, and Heath said, and it was like, wow, this is some. Maybe not so Heath so much, but on the other stream on Heath's Geek Verse on the Table Talk channel, Doug especially was like, "This is the Arcane I was here for," and I was the same way. It was like,
like season 2 had a whole lot going for it. It
on,
was
on Act 2 was
Act
really
2. You know what I meant. You know what I meant.
It was firing. It started firing on all cylinders, and the fact that it felt like it was recovering from the missteps of Act 1, and then we go right back to the same missteps of Act 1. I just cannot abide it. I
think some of these missteps were
my first impressions were ambivalence, and then I tried to watch it through a second time.
Mm-hmm.
I watched through Act 1 4 times, start to finish, just to really get it kind of into my mind and try and analyze it and engage with it. I tried to watch Act 3 multiple times, and the second time through, I got this. To me, this is unforgivable. For Arcane, I actually lost interest, and my mind started wandering. And as the episodes were playing, I was focusing on other things.
That's a bad time.
That's a bad time.
And I agree with you. I agree that this is, unfortunately, and I mean, I'll read it again. It's in my notes. I say the most emotionally satisfying episode, then sadly, and again, this is apart from everything that's come before. The most emotionally satisfying episode, then sadly, is one that doesn't matter to the story at hand. It just
I thought episode 5 was the most satisfying episode emotionally.
Well, that makes sense. It is an emotional episode.
When you had the family coming back together and actually hugging, and like if that had been the end of episode 3, like I mentioned on Heath's stream, that would have been incredible.
Episode
7 was the point where I lost, where it undercut to me again. It undercut everything about Arcane. It severed my emotional investment in anything that was happening because I knew the writers weren't going to pay it off, and I was struggling to keep my attention through it for the rest of the entire act.
I might propose that maybe not next Sunday, because that might be too little time, but the Sunday after that, maybe we come back to Arcane and we don't rewrite scenes, we just reorganize scenes. So you'll do it on your end, I'll do it on my end. We can't leave anything out. We have to include everything, but I already reorganize it.
I already told Doug this. I tried that already. I've tried that, and maybe I can come back to it and be successful.
Yeah, let's give it a little bit more time.
I've tried that already once, just like I did with Act 1, and I don't think this is salvageable. I think that the storytelling failure is so deep and so fundamental that you cannot. You would have to rewrite it completely. I don't think you.
But the exercise would be just kind of reorganizing, and I get it. I get what you're saying, but I think it still might be an interesting exercise to see how you would reorganize things and how I would reorganize things, and maybe we'll need to talk about this off stream. But maybe we could do something like you're allowed to cut one full episode, or you're allowed to cut 2 scenes, right? And you define where the beginning and the end of the scene is, and that might be good enough.
But where is the ultimate goal? Here's the thing: is the third. This is my biggest problem. Is I was trying to wrestle with season 2 of Arcane. My biggest problem of Act 3 is that it completely abandons and/or undercuts everything that we set up as a thematical through line from season 1 all the way through, as much as we could discern out of the first 2 acts of season 2. What would you say, looking at the entire season? I know that you're a big theme guy and you want to find the themes. What is the theme? What is the point? Where is it going?
I mean, that's
What's
a
it
good
trying to
question.
say?
It's not a question that I have a ready answer to, but this
And
is
that's
something
that's a bad indicator.
But this is something that we should maybe revisit in these potential future streams. I'm not locking anything in. It's just a conversation at this moment.
No, I'd be happy to if I can think of anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, that could even be part of the episode. If you can't, you can't, right? Like if it's not, if you can't, then what are you supposed to do?
I can't even figure out how to. I told Doug we started texting last night, and he was like, "Have you watched season 3? Have you watched Arcane?" And I'm like, "Yeah." As soon as it dropped, and he's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, and this is when I was actually halfway through my second watch through, and I'm like, what did I say? Let me pull up the text messages. I was like, basically utter disappointment. And I don't know, literally, I do not know how to rewrite this because I don't know what they were trying to say.
Well, it wouldn't
when you get to the end, it is totally meaningless.
Reorganization, and it would be a challenge. And that's kind of the point, right? Is that you do it to see how challenging it is to really magnify or highlight the issues that we're having with specific scenes. Because if it can't fit anywhere, then it shouldn't fit anywhere. It shouldn't be there, right? And so I think that would ultimately be the purpose of the exercise, not to make it more sensical, not to make it more cohesive, or not to give it a better resolution, but to see what doesn't fit. Because if we chop this up, because of the nature of the season, I think that it should be pretty easily reordered, but some things aren't going to fit. And if they don't fit, then they shouldn't have been there. Right. And we said this about season 1. We said that season 1, it just took way too much time to get to where it was going. And then once we started
season 1,
did I say season 1? I meant act 1. And then we get to act 2, and it's like, why did we even need act 1? And we ended up not really needing it. So I think that, Heath says
they were making
not caught up to live yet, but I would have said they were trying to make forgiveness a main theme here, although I don't think that was done well. I think that, in my interpretation, the theme for this particular act is freedom, and I think that forgiveness would probably be a sub theme of that, right? You're freeing yourself from your hatred. Caitlin says this; she just doesn't have the energy anymore to hate, and so
I would agree with what Heath is saying here. I think that's what they were trying to do, especially because
I don't even know that's what they were trying to do. I just know what was communicated
in the alternative universe in episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, episode 7 is arguably the most innovative and brilliant episode of season 1, The Boy Savior, for numerous reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 7 in season 2 is the stake through the heart of the series, in my opinion, and for numerous reasons, not just because of what they did by implying that everything would have been better if Vi had just died outright. Like, it wasn't Jinx that was a monster; it was Vi who caused all the problems in the first place, which is kind of disgusting. But also, then they have Silco showing up with his eye healed somehow and saying forgiveness is, like, he outright freaking says forgiveness is like the main thing. And that totally undercuts everything about what his character means. It is a fun, and again, Amanda Overton wrote this episode solo. Right? She has a solo writing credit. She does not understand Arcane. She may understand story, and she may have helped them save the story for the first season, but she does not get the actual meaning of the show. And this episode is the proof positive of it, in my opinion.
Micah says here,
my gosh.
Heath, I think they're right, as freedom more than forgiveness is a main focus. Forgiveness is meant as freedom from guilt. It isn't as broadly applied as freedom as a whole. So obviously this is what I'm trying to say. So Micah is picking up on what, my
and I don't say either one of you are wrong, and I'm sure that that's probably part of what they were, and maybe even the main thing they were trying to do. But the whole thing about a central interrogation is that it's whatever
I knew that this was going to bother you. I knew. I got to the end of the series, or I got to the end of the season, and I said to Candace, I said, this is going to bother Sable because it's not going to be clear what the central interrogation is.
Because there is none.
It's all over the place. And I knew that this was going to be something that you found a lot of difficulty with. Justifiably. I'm not, not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that once the season concluded, I was like, yeah, I know that this is going to be an issue. I knew
because it has no direction. The last shot of the show, the last shot of this season, and as we know now, of the show entirely, is a solo airship mirroring the one that went over the heads of the gang in episode 1 as they were standing looking over Piltover, except this one is flying out towards the ocean. Mm-hmm. And then we have the end pop up in Jinx's scratches, even though she's supposedly dead, in reverse, in mirror over the airship, and then it cuts to black with no music over the credits. What are we supposed to take from that? What are you leaving me? What are you saying? That has no meaning whatsoever. You're taking us back to the end of the first to the very start of the first episode. What was the point?
It's like, so
what is your theme? What are you telling us? There is nothing there.
Right. It's like, is there a theme? Yes. They don't really effectively, like, it recurrently comes up, and events in the act are pointed toward a theme, but it's like, well, there's nothing real. Like I said, it's like it's tenuously held together by like the barest threads of structure, because it's really just a montage or a pastiche of character moments. It's all character driven, but it's all really tenuously held together, and that makes things imbalanced, and it makes things so confused.
If it was actually character driven, then show us characters at the goddamn end of the show. Don't show us this random airship flying into the ocean. What is that?
Yeah, I think that was a very
Piltover now expanding.
It was a very cheap ending.
Piltover expanding into the greater world now, or what? Like is it the first thing I thought of was Milo saying, "I want to ride, and I'm going to ride, or I'm going to shoot one of those down." Right?
Yeah.
Okay. In retrospect, I finally got what they were doing. Jinx said, one day I'm going to ride in one of those things. So somehow she's still alive and she's going across the ocean in an airship. That's why it says the end in her scribbles reversed, the mental scribbles across the thing. But the first thing I thought of was Milo saying, and one day I'm going to shoot one of them down. And I'm like, Milo's dead. He's been dead for 12 episodes. Why are we going back there?
To interrupt you really briefly, Frogger.
Yes, please.
I'm starring your comments. First of all, welcome. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating in chat. Second of all, I'm starring a lot of your comments because I am also a League player and I am familiar with the lore. I've actually brought up Swain. I've brought up Malzahar. I've brought up LeBlanc in previous streams discussing Arcane. So I'm starring your comments. I don't want you to think that I'm skipping them. I'm not. We'll just probably review them at the end. Or closer to the end once we got, all of our bloviating out of the way. But I have these started. I don't want you to think that I'm not paying attention. I am. We'll just get to them in a minute.
Please do offer any kind of lore insights on this. However, insofar as the show goes, as somebody who has never played the game and does not have a deep knowledge of the lore, I have only the most tertiary.
You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to.
I should not have to. Everything in the show ought to, and it did in the first season, everything in the show ought to make sense without lore drops. I definitely did get the sense in season 2 that we were seeing lore drops left and right, and many of them had no context for me. I was completely confused where the Black Rose came from originally, and I still don't know what actual relevance they had to the overall conflict in Piltover.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was kind of like, ooh, spooky threat, and it's like, you're not explaining anything. You're not explaining anything.
And I agree that if you don't see the dead body, of course the character is still alive. So Vander's still alive as Warwick. Jinx is still alive. Like all of the people who we saw, Jace and Victor, they're still alive. Echo's still, like.
Oh, hello, the General Grievous. Thank you for.
Obviously, they're all quote unquote still alive because that's television tropism, right?
Well, also resurrection is now a possibility in this world, right?
Yeah, at least apparently,
some means.
But again, it's kind of like Mass Effect 2, where it's like, hey, let's drop this absolutely world-altering, existential change on the world and have no exploration of the actual consequences.
I have more notes on episode 7. They're very, very brief. If I can just run through them real quick. So
yeah, go right ahead. I mean,
number one,
I'm going to talk for hours if you don't stop me. So go ahead.
Number one, or well, not number one, but I guess the first thing in returning to my notes, I love Heimerdinger's song. I loved it.
That was one of the highlights of the whole season.
I thought that it was the most effective song in the entire series. Not season, not act, series. It was the most effective song because it's character driven, because all of the things that he is singing about, he has experienced, and that experience read into the song as it's playing out over Echo and the different events that are taking place while he's singing. I thought was an extremely effective use of song. I thought it was the best landing that they have stuck for any of the songs that they've put in any of the episodes. There are some cases that can be made for some of the songs in season 1, but definitely for season 2, this is the strongest lyrical entry
for season 2, for sure. 100%, no question.
Then I say flashes forward to Jace are important to show at Hex. I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, I took these notes and I paused the show and my shoulders slumped. I hate saying this, but like the flashes forward, and this is me trying to be fair, right? So maybe in the moment I got it a little wrong. Maybe they're really not important, but I say like the flashes forward to Jace are important to show what Hextech is in truth.
Here's the thing.
In the present, we haven't gotten there yet, but this is where it will take us, and it has a real impact on the universe, not some alternate universe. This will happen to where our characters are living if Hextech is allowed to propagate.
100%. And from a storytelling perspective, time travel doesn't bother me. It's already kind of been set up. It's already been teased.
Yeah.
And everything that happens in episode 7 should have been told to us in half an episode, 3 episodes earlier, before episode 6 happened.
I don't disagree with that. I think that this episode came way too late. In fact, that's one of my notes, one of the last ones. I think this episode came way too late.
The thing is, most of what we were shown was already implicated. We could already draw a conclusion about it by inference. All we needed was a few signposts to help us fill in the blanks as the audience. Same as was done multiple times throughout season 1. There were numerous things throughout season 1 where it was pointed out, hey, these are the critical things you need to know. And that's left to the audience to fill in the blanks, but not so far as in it doesn't, like we have to do the heavy lifting. Like the actual signposts, the actual girders of the story were given to us, and we could draw the rest by implication. But
yeah, I think the only thing that we absolutely
want to invest the mental energy to imply, then we still had enough to follow the events in a way that made sense and felt satisfying. So episode 7 is like trying to backfill everything that happened before it.
I think the only things out of this episode that we absolutely needed were Jace experiencing the hellscape that was the future. Okay, we needed that. We needed Echo to create his time travel device, and we needed to see that 4 seconds was the limit, so that when he pushed past that, we knew that it was him.
No consequence later. which has no consequence later on at the finale of the last episode.
Yeah, there's no real
consequence. It past 4 seconds and nothing bad happens.
Yeah. I know, but we needed those in order to get to where we were going. But I'm fairly certain, like, those are the only things from this episode
also
we absolutely needed.
How does time recursion in one universe allow him to transmit himself back to his own native universe?
Yeah, I don't know. Right. So it was
what?
Like Jace was displaced in time. They were displaced in time and dimension. And so that's more complicated.
That's way more complicated.
So I had that same question. I didn't write it down as a note, but it was kind of like, in fact, maybe I did. So I say...
shouldn't have ever been a multiverse thing. It should always have been
no multiverses. In fact, one of my notes is multiverses are the pits. Or I say alternate universes.
Multiverse.
So then I say the flashes backward to Echo, and I don't know if I still agree with this note, but it says the flashes backward to Echo are important to show how it changes everything it encounters. And what I mean by that is that my next note is Hextech is clearly the villain. So it wasn't that I feel like it wasn't that if Vi died, it would have changed everything, though that was the message that was unfortunately communicated. What it was trying to say, and what it could have said in a better way, like, just don't send everyone on the job, right? But what it effectively was attempting to say was Hextech, if Hextech is developed, then everything goes to shit. Not if Vi is alive, everything goes to shit. But again, it was a very ineffective communication. So, but I don't know if I agree with this note anymore. Think
if she dies, everybody is happier. But
yeah, that's effectively what we got. That is what we got. We got a Vi dies, everyone's happy.
Even Silco somehow gets his eye healed and reconciles with Vander, which absolutely, again, undercuts everything about his character and their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely invalidates it and makes anything that happened in season 1 feel completely meaningless.
I'll stop before I get there because I can allow season 1 to exist apart. And I can allow season 1 to exist apart.
What I have to do in my
I think that in season 2 it would do that, but season 1 exists apart. I think it's a complete story. I think it is a masterpiece unto itself, and
yes,
I think that
100% it is.
I will go back to watch season 1. I might go back to watch a couple of episodes of season 2. Like if I want to feel cozy in front of a fire, maybe I'll rewatch episode 7. But like completely outside of the mindset of wanting any sort of sensical continuation to the first season, because we don't get that.
The only thing that I'll go back ever to watch in season 2 now at this point is the flashback to Vi and Power's mom with Silco and Vander in the last drop. I thought that was that is still an outstanding, fantastic scene.
Yeah,
there's also that sequence. It's only about 3 seconds long in the last episode of Echo flying on his skyboard, swinging around and doing the World War II dogfight dive into the basilica there. That was a great
emotional hit. It was a great emotional hit. I thought it was amazing.
Nation that was worthy of How to Train Your Dragon. That was worthy
good.
of Hayao Miyazaki's flying scenes. That was amazing.
Oh, Heath.
Outstanding animation.
Brianna told me that she thought. Hold on one moment. Brianna told me that she thought a lot of this show was told in the wrong order and has
100%. 100%.
She's going to come at it from a restructuring perspective. Obviously, we agree.
Yes.
I mean, I said it flatly, and I think that it's 100% correct that this season has a major structuring
I cannot agree more with that. Again, like I mentioned, I've tried already to do that. I did do it with Act 1 already, as we talked about on stream. And I also talked about how you needed to continue the storytelling convention that was set up with the cold open of every episode being a flashback or at least a recontextualization of earlier parts of the show that were then the focus of whatever that character was going to be who drove the line of action for that episode. Again, First episode, it was Vi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second episode, this is back in season 1. First episode was Vi. Second, famously enough, third episode was Silco. Fourth episode was the city of Piltover itself, and you go on all the way forward. Eighth episode was Mel. She got a flashback and recontextualized everything about her. The only episode that did not have a flashback was episode 9 because it was the resolution. It was the climax, and it was picking up right from where the episode 8 ended off. But every other episode, you go back and you watch the cold open is a flashback. Vi, Jace, Silco, Piltover, Kate, Victor, Mel, and then going right into the finale. They should have kept that same convention in season 2. They should also, and Brianna, if that's the note that she sent to Heath is entirely correct, the arrangement is way out of order.
Yeah, there is something
we should have been
that involves time travel, or the reorganization of time, that it gets its timing so
wrong. There are numerous things we should have been given far earlier than we were.
Mm-hmm.
There are numerous,
and we could have been given those things if the first act was just shortened or omitted, right?
Yep,
like there was more important things that we needed to be exposed to way earlier than we were.
And we should have stopped wasting time on slideshow music videos.
Yes. And that's absolutely an opinion that I share.
And it's just I know I probably sound mad. It's more that I'm
passionate, not mad, right? We didn't
I
go into this wanting to not like it. We wanted to go into this loving it.
I wanted to love it as much as I love season 1, because season 1 of Arcane is some of the finest television that has ever been produced. Period. End of story. I don't care if it's animation or not. In fact, animation elevates it higher than a lot of live action, in my opinion, because I know how much work it takes. I know how much care was put into the details. And everything that was put on screen was done so intentionally. That's part of the nature of animation.
This felt a lot more like, this sounds cool. We need a scene where this happens. So they just kind of make the scene, and then very
stuff happens.
They hang it on the most delicate of threads, hoping that it's not going to fall or drag other things down with it.
Stuff happens because it's supposed to happen, not because it makes sense.
Yep.
And Kate's arc is Kate's arc, and everybody around her. By the way, Caitlin is absolutely subject in season 2 to the vicissitudes of the plot. Everybody around her also is. Even Mel Medardo, although she doesn't seem like it. But Kate is the through line who dictates the direction of the plot, and she is being directed by the screenwriters to behave in a certain way, not because that's how she would behave, but it's because the plot.
That's what they needed to do. This is what we needed to do. This is
and all of the characters, whether it's Maddie or Vi or Ambessa, all also behave and orbit around her in the service of the plot, not the character.
One of the notes I have,
vast undermining of the.
One of the notes I have in all caps.
For Ambessa.
One of the notes I have in all caps is, "This is what has to happen, so we will make this happen."
Exactly.
So go further down.
We also got a few more, a little bit of a return of the. Especially in episode 7, a little bit in episode 8, of the "I am character, here is how I feel."
Unfortunately, that did make a little bit of a return. Yes. Let's see.
So
Notes. I have.
I
guess that's it. I guess that's all I took for episode 7. So we can transition to episode 8 now, I think.
Through the entirety, this goes right into episode 8. Through the entirety of everything, Victor and everything he's doing and everything surrounding him in the Arcane remains the most interesting thing through this whole season.
Yes, I agree.
As badly as they treated it, it still remains the most interesting thing.
Unfortunately, I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not, but my initial note here, and this is possibly coming off of the mindset that I was in from episode 7, which is, now this matters to the plot. When episode 8 opened, the very first note I have is, I don't care what's happening to Mel right now. I just don't care.
Right. It seems to have absolutely no relevance. And by the end, it still has no relevance.
Yeah, I say
that actually happens.
Exactly what I say. I say her journey of self-discovery regarding her magehood is entirely unrelated to all of the other events in the story. Her kidnapping is relevant. Her mageness is not.
Her kidnapping is relevant only in a tertiary perspective, in that it drives.
But but that's all that I could find that was relevant. That's all that I could find in all of that was relevant, was that, okay, she was kidnapped and her mom kind of, the Black Rose, like it was, and that's kind of what it was there for, right? Like she was kidnapped to sort of introduce the Black Rose and get that ball rolling. But like, okay, she's a mage. I don't think that this is relevant at all, especially at this point in the story. And I just didn't.
I actually have almost nothing to say about episode 8 because of how absolutely meaningless everything that happened in it was. You had episode 7, which supposedly set up the emotional context for everything that was going to happen, and we found out actually didn't in the next 2 episodes. And then we had episode 9, which was supposedly the resolution of all the plot threads, even though several of them didn't actually resolve or have any relevance to the name. And then there's episode 8, and I don't even remember, after watching it twice, really a whole lot of what happened in episode 8. It was pure transition. There was no weight to it whatsoever.
Yeah. I have here, the Arcane is waking up, quote unquote, which is a line that LeBlanc speaks. I say it is a nod to a broader world with myriad events, but it's not relevant to the story.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we're dealing with the Arcane as Victor is experiencing it and exposing the rest of this very local city and people to it. Like, the wider world doesn't matter. Don't bring it into this. We can explore the wider world if you do, as you say, continue to tell stories in this universe, which I am very hopeful for.
There's an indication that they were trying to do something like that with the Black Rose and Noxus interfering in the first place, but it never paid off, and it was never delineated what either of the factions coming in from Noxus really actually wanted to accomplish.
Yes.
So then what was the point?
Dude, Ambessa's motivation for attacking Piltover was so nonsensical. Why was she attacking Piltover? Because she wanted Victor to get to the Hex Gate so that he could ascend, but she was also, there was an interpretation there by Kate that she was seeking vengeance. It was like Ambessa up to this point had been extremely well crafted as a leader. She does not expose weakness to the world, and then that all falls by the wayside because she needs revenge and she's got to help this dude get to the Hex Gate. It's like none of that makes any sense whatsoever. Right. I was very disappointed in that.
She was being set up to be Silco for season 2. She was the one who always had an angle, right? But she also had what Silco never did, which was the actual force to back it up. She had her own overwhelming physical presence and skill, plus an army, and that made her potentially far deadlier and far more interesting than even Silco ever was. And then they absolutely squandered it because. Here's one of the things.
It was just like, well, this is what we need her to do, so this is what we're going to have her do, and it didn't make any sense with regard to her motivations, her goals. It's something
that actually Doug has talked about in multiple streams, talking with Heath the Geekverse and Table Talk is if you're going to set up a big climactic battle scene, spends a bit of time to lay out the strategic layout, like go over the strategy and the tactics, the actual terrain that this is going to occur upon, and what each side wishes to accomplish, what their objectives are, how they plan on achieving those objectives. You need to have that at least from the side of the defenders, of the protagonists, right? Otherwise, it's just a bunch of action scenes with no weight to it. And partway up, there were a couple of the fight scenes until about halfway through episode 9. I was actually kind of on the edge of my seat, like I was invested. And about halfway through, I was like, for whatever reason, all of the tension just evaporated, and like, none of this matters. None of it actually is actually accomplishing anything. I have no idea what anybody who is here is actually trying to accomplish. Like, I don't know what they want to do. And
I agree. And it's because
at that point you lose all the steam.
Drop their personal motivations. It's just in the blink of an eye, it's dropped. And I also have here, speaking of a blink of an eye, I say Victor is a god now. He's disembodied in Myriad. This is too big for how local the first season and first 2 acts of this season are. Stakes went from personal to global in the blink of an eye. It was just, whoomp, now here we are. These are global, possibly universal stakes. He is a universe-altering entity. We need a little bit more than just a switch being flipped.
He is the Black Swan event. Like, he is an existential alteration. And that, again, they were leading up. They laid seeds to this. Here's another thing. Like, I don't have any notes. These are all things that are just off the top of my head as I was watching through the second time. But they laid seeds all throughout the first season that the Arcane speaks through them, right? The Arcane has an intelligence in and of its own. And they were actually still following that thread all the way through episode 6 of season 2. And then nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like, apparently the Arcane is just an electromagnetic field equivalent. Like,
yeah, I don't know. And
oh my gosh.
So when she said she was going to take meeting Ambessa, you know what? Let's do the first comment first. So he says, I have no damn idea why Ambessa was attacking Piltover. I don't think anyone did, not even Ambessa. When she said she was going to take them to whatever was below the Hex gates, I thought she was going to walk in and take them there, right? Like, I agree. And like, once Victor gets there, there's no defense. And Chase knows exactly where Victor's going, and none of the guards were stationed there. Victor just kind of shows up, and maybe there were guards stationed outside. We don't know that as the audience. They never showed us. So it's literally just Victor showing up, cutting a hole in the door, and then walking through. Meanwhile, there's this entire war, this bloody war going on above them, and it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Why couldn't she have done that in the first place? It was obvious from the first half of the season that the Noxian soldiers had been integrated into the security of the city in the first place. Why did they have to leave the city and then lay siege to it? They could have walked the hell in.
They could. Yes, it's nonsense.
Things happen only because they were supposed to happen. They don't make any sense.
So my next note is, you have to forgive a lot to enjoy this as a critical watcher, and I don't think I can forgive this much. So in the previous episode, I said, I can forgive a lot of this. In this episode, I was like, nah, I can't, because this is all nonsensical. I have no idea how to make heads or tails of any of this. The character motivations have fallen to the wayside. The events in and of themselves don't make any sort of logical sense whatsoever. There's really no causality there because of all the things that we just discussed. And it just, I can't forgive all of that. I think that is just absolutely, it is nonsensical to such a flagrant degree that I can't I can't do anything with it, and as a result, I'm just unable to forgive it.
And halfway through episode 7, I was there because I realized, okay, this entire episode is going to be a time jump or time loop or whatever the hell you want to call it, and you are wasting my time.
Yes, it is a time waster, and
and you only have,
love my time being wasted.
You only have 3 episodes. You only have 3 episodes left to land this whole ship, and you're wasting an entire episode. And I know you're not going to get to the end before the end of the episode, and I don't give a damn.
Yeah. Yep. There was a lot to not give a damn about.
Halfway through, I already knew everything you needed me to know, and all the rest was just there's a okay. And I said this to Doug over text messages last night. This is season 8 of Game of Thrones. It is the same level. There is a lot that viewers will forgive you for, but they will not forgive you wasting their time. This is a waste of time.
When I brought this up to Jax, they likened it to the difference between A New Hope and episode 1, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant because it encapsulates all the issues that I was having with character-driven versus plot-driven, nonsense versus sense, and I actually really like that. Now, obviously, it might not be a one-for-one comparison. I think there are probably there are holes that you could poke in that, but I think generally speaking, it is an extremely apt comparison. And then I have a little bit of a sad note here. I say more than I disliked Act 1 and more than I liked Act 2, I wanted to like Act 3. There is a lot here, but it is imbalanced. And a lot is nonsensical. So, there are a lot of good character-driven elements, but again, they're just sort of hung tenuously on the barest thread in an attempt to string things together.
Because there's no reason for anything.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
We get to the end of the season, and what was the point? What was the theme? Is there even a theme? There's definitely not a central interrogation, like we've talked about before, but is there even a theme? Just a theme. Give me one theme, and I can't tease it out. And that's why I feel like it is impossible to rewrite what we've gotten. You have to go back and start from scratch. It is
I think I got a pretty clear theme out of it. I just don't think that it was.
Well, okay, but I don't think
there is a theme. They did speak to it. It's just that unfortunately, all of the scenes, independent of one another, spoke to the theme, but not in unison, right? Because there's very little connective tissue between the scenes, and so while we were getting that call back to the theme, or the call up, I should say, to the theme, we weren't getting it in this lateral movement to make sense of the events that were happening as things were progressing.
What would you say that theme is?
Oh, freedom. I said it at the top of the episode. It's freedom it's mostly freedom with a sub theme of unity. And there's also various sub themes there.
Is it freedom? Is it unity? Is it forgiveness? Is it
not forgiveness? And unity is a sub theme. So
really, it's not forgiveness because that's what happened. That's what gave us the whole thing with Kate leaving the keys there for Vi to find to let Jinx out. I think
forgiveness has been a sub theme throughout the entire season. So the first season or the first
my point is I don't think it has a clear theme. That's why it's
okay. Well, I disagree. I think that the theme is clear. I think the theme is very clear. I just think that it was unsuccessful in the lateral communication of that theme between scenes.
Well, then the theme is
why. No, that's not exactly true, because each individual theme calls up to freedom or unity.
Freedom from what?
Freedom from what do my notes say? Freedom from time, freedom from the cycle, be it the cycle of violence or the cycle of. There was another cycle in there that I can't remember, I guess, but there was freedom from time, freedom from the cycle, freedom from your blood. Mel was very concerned with her bloodline and being a Medarda, and then being able to give yourself.
How is that theme? Then, if that's the case, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I genuinely want to know if that's the case. How is that theme addressed and transcended, or applied, or not? If not transcended, applied to the lives of the characters in a way that shows that you cannot transcend it.
I don't know what you mean by transcend.
Well, if it's freedom from death, if it's freedom from time.
Not death.
Really?
I specifically discounted death.
Okay.
Yeah, I left death off. The notes that I took here say freedom from time, the cycle, your blood, and your fate. So fate's
time, cycle, blood, and fate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how do the characters engage with and or transcend, or are not do not transcend and are thus trammeled by those themes?
Well, I don't necessarily know that that's something they have to transcend or be trammeled by. It's just
the story has nothing to say.
No, that's not necessarily true. But I think that there is definitely convolution, right? So you asked for a theme. Yeah. The theme that I'm naming is freedom. There's a sub-theme of unity for everyone joining together and trying to stamp out the external threat or join together as a family or whatever. So join together as a city or, whatever. So there's that sub-theme of unity.
But what's the point? What's the resolution?
That's the problem, right? The problem is that while each individual, while each individual scene speaks to the theme, it's the tenuous connection laterally that prevents it from having meaning. So there is a clear theme. It is spoken to. It's just meaningless at the end because that's the lateral movement. The lateral movement would be meaning. How did they achieve their freedom, right? So Echo, his moment of freedom is freedom from time. And so because he's locked into this alternate universe that he needs to get out of, he does a whole bunch of work that ends up not really mattering, but he becomes free from time. And that ultimately peters out at the end. Mel becomes free from her bloodline because she's able to make decisions to oppose her mother. She discovers that she is a mage, which isn't a part of her Medarda heritage.
And then at the end, she's sailing back to prosecute the war against the Black Rose again.
Well, hold on. Right. Well, but this peters out at the end. So Mel's freedom peters out at the end.
Yeah.
Freedom from your fate is something that's kind of underpinned the entire series, and it doesn't really they avoid the future that Jace saw, but so what? And then there's freedom from the cycle, which they achieve, right? They achieve freedom from the cycle of violence or the cycle of murder or whatever. But at the end, it peters out. So
but then Kate actually says, "Are you still in this fight?" to Vi. What fight? I thought that
does she say fight or does she say, "Are you still in this?"
Are you still in the? She asked her if she's still in the fight.
Well,
and I'm like, what fight? So you just had the fight. I thought you won.
The idea that I got at the end of the show when we were seeing a montage, and there was the crow, and he was sort of born on the wind that was bringing Noxan ships across the sea. I viewed that as the war engaging in earnest. It wasn't just one general, Ambessa, who was attacking Piltover. I viewed that as now there's this huge war that's going to take place because we're seeing the Noxan ships and we're seeing Kate and Vi in what is effectively a command center.
But the Noxian ships were Ambessa's ships that now Mel was in command of going back to Noxus, apparently.
See, but here's the thing about this. We have no idea because they didn't show us any of that stuff. So, my interpretation could be as valid as yours, but we have no idea. But to get back to the theme thing, I think that the theme was it was clear. I think that it was spoken to. I just don't think that it was effectively tied together. And that's when I say there was no lateral connection for the theme to take. It was that is the element that you are looking for. That is the why does it matter? It's the answer to that question. And there is no answer to that question. Yeah. So while the theme is there and it does get spoken to very consistently, very effectively, it's just meaningless. So it's a theme. Yeah. And it's there. It's just meaningless because by the time of the resolution, none of it matters.
It is, yeah, I would agree that it is a theme. I don't disagree at all. It doesn't have any actual relevance, though. So then why do we? And this is why.
No, I agree with you. It's
this is probably why I will not.
Very frustrating. It's very frustrating.
I will not be going back to watch season 2. Like, especially on my second watch through to try and actually take mental notes. I wasn't writing them down, but I was trying to go through and watch again, and I found my attention actually wandering by
like
by the start of
doing so many things better with my time.
By the start of episode 9, I was just like my gaze was going elsewhere in the room, and I was turning around to do something else while the show was running, and I'm just like, and I came to myself at some point, and I realized how vastly different that was from season 1, where no matter how many times I watch it, I am invested in every single second. There is no wasted time. And knowing that nothing in season 2 matters, and nothing in it has any actual relevance to any kind of central focus. Like, I don't know what they're trying to tell me. I know what they're saying. Whether or not they intended to, or whether it was the central interrogation. I mean, Christopher Linke said, "Can a monster be saved?" is the main question of season 1.
Oh yeah, so he absolutely proposed that.
I know that. I found that out after watching it, but it's so clear throughout season 1 that I was enraptured through the entirety of it, and they spoke to that question, and throughout the entire season, they implied the answer until they definitively answered it by the end. No, monster cannot be saved. For whatever reason, the monster must be the monster. And it doesn't matter who made the monster. It doesn't matter why the monster is monstrous. The monster is a monster and always will be. That's
until we get to season 2 when it's not a monster anymore.
And then until we get to season 2, and then who knows what a monster is?
Yep.
And the monster is a sister. The monster is a dad. The monster is a savior. The monster is a symbol. The monster is whatever.
A freedom fighter. A savior.
And all the monsters are valid and they're all great. And then apparently they're all fighting for freedom from something together against.
Well, not even together though, right? It's like they're not even together.
Like, and it doesn't make any. It just, I don't know. There's no unifying thread that ties everything together. Just like you could look at season 1, you could say, oh, it's about power, it's about control, it's about oppression, it's about
a lot of different things.
It's about deprivation, it's about all these things. But
yeah,
all those things serve only to be the pinball table for the characters to bounce around the main theme. And it's like, who is responsible? Who is responsible for the creation of a monster? And once the monster exists, can they be changed?
Right, and can they be diverted from that? There is not a single wasted moment. There's not a single wasted moment. Right, so every single thing that you see that goes up on screen pushes things forward. It pushes characters forward. It pushes the plot forward. And it does so in a unified way so that we're not stuck with this imbalance of now we get plot, now we get character development, back to plot, back to... It all happens in unison, simultaneously, as good stories do.
As a grand conjunction in a way that very few people have ever pulled off.
Yeah, in fact, the word that I use is convergence. Like I have that in my notes. I say that it is a convergence.
And yet we get to season 2 and 6/9 of the season is a waste of time. Like it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know from season 1. So why are we watching? I honestly don't see myself ever going back to rewatch season 2. And I hate to say it because there is some outstanding animation. The art direction is still, from Fortiche, beyond top tier. It's incredible. I wish I could enjoy it more.
I think that the character design is some of the best I've ever seen, and I think that unfortunately that it gets a little like it's there and it's very present and it's excellently executed. So Jinx has an X motif. They're all over the place, including every cross in her hair, in her braided pigtails, right? Vi has V's all over the place. So, but when Jinx is in the jail cell after having apparently surrendered herself to Kate, which we for some reason couldn't see on screen, so they just tell us that was. So that's another issue that I have with
because they were running out of time.
Right. So, but with her hair undone, with all of those X's undone, and her clothes are completely different in so far as that she's undone the X, and there are a bunch of X's that are missing throughout. Like that's really, really strong. The character design communication. Sure. It's real strong, but doesn't mean anything.
Yep, doesn't.
And it's annoying. It's absolutely. Like it's very, very frustrating to see all of that. Like I don't want to.
You could see the artists putting more effort and investment into the story than the writers were, and that. Oh,
I agree.
I hate. I feel like
I'm so negative or I'm so down on this, and it's because that's not what I wanted. But it's because the bar was set so freaking high, maybe impossibly high. Maybe it is just lightning in a bottle, and it will never be equal. You know, there is but you are bound to fail in some measure coming off of such a strong season one. You are never going to live up to that bar, but you could have done better than this. I told Doug again, we were texting last night. I told him I feel like they should have taken another year. I would have been fine waiting a whole nother year for this. I agree. And I'll tell you what, the General Grievous, I love Arcane and still think season 2 is good, and I love it. But I do think it's worse storytelling now than season 1. I agree. And I'm never going to begrudge someone something that they love. And as I said, for episode 7, I really was able to forgive a lot to be able to enjoy that. And so I'm not criticizing anyone's ability to like or enjoy or, otherwise feel positive about this season. I just, in watching it to do this discussion, I was watching it with a critical eye, as Sable Phoenix was, and there are things that, because I come from film, I come from editing, there are just things that you expect them to execute on with aplomb that weren't executed well on, if they were executed at all. And that's where my difficulty is coming from. If I can sit down and watch it without a critical eye and just sit down and be entertained, cool. I wish I could do that sometimes. I mean, hell, I watch commercials with a critical eye because sometimes commercials are just that friggin' dumb. What I'm getting at is that I'm not going to begrudge you from liking it. I don't think you have to defend yourself here, right? You never, ever, never have to defend. You can love it and you can stand on that love and you can declare it loudly and boldly. And I am very, very happy and very supportive to have you love this thing. We're just talking about it critically at the moment as far as the story is concerned, because that's what we're doing here, right? Because it's a matter of learning. It's a very, at least I find, a very engaging intellectual exercise to break stories down. I have a lot of fun doing it. Sable is an extremely great conversation partner for this sort of thing. So, not to puff your ego up too high, but I really do enjoy. No worries there. And I'm not ever trying to condemn anyone for liking or loving anything. Yeah, same here. In fact, I will say this. If you can watch season 2 of Arcane and enjoy it just as much as season 1, I envy you. I wish I could do the same. Yeah. However, I look at it and I see it not just a total collapse from a storytelling perspective, but actually from an objective art or execution perspective, it's just not as good. Go back and watch season 1 and look at the transitions between scenes.
just the transitions between the individual scenes.
You mean the visual transitions?
The visual transitions,
Yeah.
the actual intercuts from one scene to another. Absolute freaking art.
My favorite one
almost completely. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say they're almost completely absent in season 2.
They are completely absent in season 2. In fact, and I was just going to.
It's like Jace holding up his hand and closing his fist on the Hexgate firing. It's like things like even just the scene transitions in the cold open of episode 1 as they're going from as they're doing short time transitions on the bridge.
My favorite transition in all of season 1 is when they go from climbing in the vents and the access tunnels that are all metal and piped, and they pan up. The camera pans up, and then we are immediately confronted by Victor, and we are essentially like, I think we're in his veins at the time because we're seeing disease and whatnot, and then we end up exiting out of it. But like going from the mechanical pipe tunnels to Victor, kind of telegraphing that our characters are in the veins of the city of Zon, and they're trying to make their way up to Piltover, but also that foreshadowing of what's going to happen to Victor when he finally evolves.
There's so much.
Wonderful. And that's my favorite one.
And like that, or even ones that are just shocking, like going right from Vi's when Vi and Kate are laying on the bed and she's telling her about the monster stories, and then she looks up and bam, it's like right into the same perspective of Powder's face on the operating table. Like you go from just, oh man, like Arcane 1, the season 1 is an absolute masterpiece of filmmaking. The directing and the editing is flawless.
Maybe you and I should do a review of season 1 on this channel at some point, and this would have to be probably after the new year. But like, I know that we talked about it with Heath on his channel briefly, but I think that maybe having a sit down with you and I doing season 1, just so we can show people how much we don't actually hate this.
Oh yeah, no. The reason I am so down on season 2, if season 2 was all there was and I had watched it first, I'd been like, that's a serviceable. Like, number one, man, whatever studio they got to animate this is really on top of their game. Yeah. They are like the top of the industry right now, because that's amazing. And it's pretty serviceable. That would have been my feeling. It's pretty serviceable. I don't really care about it, but it was fun to watch because it's absolutely freaking gorgeous. And that still is maintained through season 2. Like it is a visual feast. That in and of itself was, even going through Act 3 of season 2, knowing how little it actually matters. That was what kept me actually watching as much as I did. It's just because I wanted to watch that scene where Echo's going through the How to Train Your Dragon dive in the Basilica again. That was amazing.
Yeah,
that felt like Top Gun Maverick, man. That was amazing.
It was one of the, if not the best scene from, I think, the entire season.
The entire series. Yes, I agree. Arguably, that is the most incredible shot in animation, I think, that I've ever seen.
There's also the bit when Jinx is in the jail cell and Caitlin leaves. Caitlin comes to talk to Jinx. Jinx is there. They have a little bit of an exchange. Caitlin turns around and leaves, and then we're left on a close-up of Jinx's eye, and it has such a human movement with, like, you can tell she's thinking. You can tell that there's something going on because of the way her eye is darting around. And I found that I actually rewound that 2 or 3 times in the moment just to watch it, just to see how it was very impressive.
But there's all sorts of that kind of level of intricacy and care taken in all throughout season 1 as well.
Oh, for sure. It's
which is one of the things that
I just speaking to the point that way, you said that the animation is still top, right? It's still top of the heap. It's still,
sure.
100%. King of the
I have, yeah, and 100% I agree. Like the actual animation, moment to moment, I have no complaints with. I will say that the directing and some of the acting. The acting in season 1. There are some places in season 2 where, and this is me speaking as an animator who actually went to animation school, where the follow through, where the weight wasn't quite right, where the words, like the phonemes in the mouths and that kind of stuff didn't quite land. There were literally only 2 instances, very minor instances in all of season 1 where I noticed anything like that. There were definitely more in season 2, speaking to the shorter production schedule that they had, I'm sure.
Well, I don't have that eye, so I will absolutely trust yours.
It's just, I mean, once you've learned anticipation and reaction and follow through and weight distribution, all that kind of stuff, you can't not see it. And it's stuff that I could normally forgive, and if the writing had been strong enough, I would have, because I know that they had a shorter production schedule. They didn't have 7 years; they had 2 essentially. But it just goes. It's, to me, it's just one straw on another on top of that camel. That is like, it's just evidence that they needed more time. They needed more care and attention to detail for the whole thing.
Hey, Nerdy Yoga, what's up? Thanks for stopping by.
I wish that it had lived up to the absolute excellence and I don't know what to say. The excellence and the savant nature of Studio Fortiche. Like, they have a unique art style. They are a studio run by artists, and it shows. And I just wish that season 2 had supported that as deeply and as fundamentally as season 1 did. And that's the reason I agree about everything we're talking about tonight, is that I was disappointed and slightly confused in Act 1, and I felt like they were wasting time. Act 2 picked up, and I was like, okay, maybe they still got it. This is the kind of Arcane that I was coming here for. But as we said last week when we talked, I don't know how they pull it off in 3 more episodes.
Yep.
They've used up so much time, and they only have so much left, and they could not stick the landing. I was hoping they could stick the landing, and they didn't.
I completely agree with that.
I will say, I wonder if I hate to say it, but I feel like I don't know how accurate I am. This is just my gut feeling. I feel like once they got rid of all the new characters that they were trying to shove in, Shield guy, I know he got a name in episode 9. I don't remember it. Loris, that's him. Loris, fish guy, who literally never got a name and never spoke a word in the entire series.
I think it's like Steb, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know. He never spoke a word of dialogue, and nobody ever talked to him. So who the hell knows? Maddie, like, these people, they showed up in the first 3 episodes. The first 3 episodes were weak. They disappeared at the end of the first episode. Episode 4, 5, and 6 were going back to being great. And then they showed up again, all 3 of them, in episodes 7, 8, and 9, and everything fell apart again. And I can't help but feel like,
right?
I can't help but feel like they're part of the problem, man. And I'm wondering if they're not like Amanda Overton's pet project.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, it could, I was thinking about this. As I was watching these episodes, I was thinking about
episode 1 and episode 7 were both solo written by Amanda Overton.
Well, it could be that maybe because there is an MMO that is in development, and this could be like a way for Riot to be like, okay, we'll put these fish people in there because this is going to be a race that people can be in the game, or put
the
this shield guy in there because this is a class that they're going to be able to pick in the game, and it's like completely unimportant to
what
the
made
plots
what made
or
the
character
first
development.
season what made
What?
the first season so good was that it was not beholden to anything that was surrounding it, right? The creative people who had been working on the universe of Runeterra and League of Legends for years and years, they came in and they had knowledge of the backstory, but the story in and of itself that they were writing and creating was a standalone. That was, they brought in influences to, obviously, I've gone back and watched videos and I know all the different little Easter eggs and lore drops that they put into the first season. There were many, right. But they were not crucial or necessary for the understanding or direction of the story in and of itself.
Yes.
The series, the season stood alone, and demonstrably so. There are legions of reactions and reviews and analyses on YouTube and other media sites of people who have zero interaction with anything that Riot had done until that series, and who are avid fans and diving into the series. It drew people in because of this sense of external depth. Like, yeah, we understood just from the first episode, we understood that this was a broader world. There's something else out there. But we're focused on these characters interacting in ways that we understand, trying to accomplish things that have meaning. And now we want to see how these characters in this fantastic universe with these weird things that we as people in our own Earth don't relate to, how are these people who we do understand going to relate to it? And like I said last time, it's like a bunch of billiard balls. We had no idea which direction they were going to go at the end of each episode, but when they smacked into each other at the start of the next episode, it made total sense. All the way through season 3, to the point where everything felt both surprising and inevitable at the same time.
You could look forward to that reliably. You knew that what was happening in the episode that you are currently watching was going to push things forward in an unexpected way that would then push things forward in an unexpected way. It was reliable. It was like clockwork. For as untrackable and unexpected as the events themselves were, you could rely on them being unexpected and surprising, and at the same time service the story and service the characters. And it really is a masterpiece. Season 1 really is a masterpiece.
And when the interactions and outcomes of those interactions occurred, they felt not just natural, but like I said, inevitable. It's like, of course that would happen. It couldn't happen any other way. And even though I could never have anticipated how it would play out, once it happened, it's like, well, yeah, that's fate, man. These characters, they have their role, they have their way of interacting, they have their beliefs, they will follow those, and not just all of that vanished. Like, other than Ambessa through most of season 2, and Victor through most but not all, for both of them through most but not all of season 2, I can't think of any other character who is actually on model. Let's say on model. When I say on model, what I'm using is an animation term, which means that you have a model sheet for a character where you draw them in like a front, 3/4, like a full on front view, 3/4 view, profile, 3/4 rear.
It's like a visual style guide, but for
the full on 360 turnaround, right? And that way, as you're animating them, they stay consistent scene to scene, so you know who's who. You do that visually, but it's something you also have to do in the writing, right? And
yes,
they absolutely nailed that in season 1, and in season 2, they absolutely did not. their characters behave the way they're supposed to behave to make the story happen. It's not the story happening because the characters are behaving the way they're supposed to behave, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. They did it backwards this time.
Yep.
So the rest of the notes I have are like, the rest of the notes I have are, it's just a bunch of truly excellent character moments tenuously strung together with the thinnest relevance. So like, this is something that I've already stated, and there's a list of a couple of these character elements, but by the time I got to episode 9, like, Victor's evolution was absolutely beautiful. I loved the visual language that he was using. The face split in half, so it was like it was as if the hex core had kind of emerged through him, though he was still in control. Absolutely beautiful. I loved the intimacy between him and Jace. I loved the idea of Jinx's self-fulfilling prophecy of there is no good version of me, referencing her as a little sister, her as a daughter, her as a big sister. I think that the prophecy of, pardon me, that I misspoke. That was the idea. Then the prophecy of all those who come into contact with her are, dying or otherwise negatively infected, or affected, being that self-fulfilling prophecy that does come true.
Which again is undercut by episode 7.
Well, yeah, it was, but like, yeah, we kind of have to. So like, I really do enjoy all these different, like the comeuppance that Ambessa gets, the confrontation of Mel and Ambessa, the confrontation.
What the hell happened to Ambessa? That's the other thing too. Anyway, I could pick everything apart, but I'm sorry.
Well, all I'm saying is that, like, apart from the plot, apart from the story, I really did think that these character moments were effective. And I think that, unfortunately, that's kind of what led the writing around by the nose, is they went, hey, we need to have this happen, so let's have this happen. We need to have this happen. So in isolation, they are very, very well achieved character moments. We just don't know how we friggin' got there, and we don't know what impact it has moving forward, because there's not a lot of communication laterally. So it's just not there. But I can appreciate the character moments for what they are, even though it is a little bit of it's just montage, right? It's just, as this character gets this moment, this character gets this moment, this character gets this moment. We don't know really how they all relate to each other, how they're coming together, what's going to happen at the end. But pushing that to the side, I think that in the moment, in those characters' moments, I guess I'm repeating myself now, they really did show that they have the capability to continue moving forward in that way with really solid character moments. I just think, unfortunately, they drove this with the plot instead of the characters, because they didn't have enough time to make things flow into each other in a natural way as they did in the first season. That made it one, cohesive story with a point. I think that Jinx, quote unquote, dying at the end was absolutely the easy way out, and I 100%. Like there was nothing for me to really hate about this season except for this. It's the easy way out, and it's bad. It's easy.
Just
throwing talent, and getting to the end of the story and going meh.
And there's a quote from, I think it's Oscar Wilde, who says you can ask your audience to believe the impossible but not the improbable.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they go over the edge and Vi grabs Jinx's arm, and she's got a 350-pound cybernetic werewolf hanging off of her leg, I'm like, her arm is not coming out of her socket? Why?
Nah, she's ripped in half, man. No,
she's ripped in fucking half.
There's no surviving that.
Pardon my French. It's like, that just goes to show, like, to me, that was the point where the writers just threw in the towel and said, okay, here's what needs to happen. Who cares if it makes any sense or not?
Yep, that was a towel throw.
We're at the end, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
No, it does goddamn matter.
And then, like, the conversation between Vi and Kate was like, that's another one that I think
it was so awkward and unnecessary.
Well, it was awkward, but it's one that could have been placed
what does
earlier,
it even mean?
and it would have fit and it would have made sense, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so it ended.
Yeah.
It capped the series off, which is like
that conversation
mind-boggling. It was just bizarre.
That's the thing. There's an old watchword, and I don't know where it's from, but there's a rule of thumb when you're writing is always start your story later than you should. Yeah. Start it in the middle of the action. So in this case, cut that first act out almost entirely, not entirely, but almost, and give yourself space to get to things like that conversation you're talking about where I'm the dirt under your fingernails. What the hell does that mean? Except it makes sense earlier in the story, but not at the end. And so have that happen earlier in the story.
Yes.
It's just like,
and I'm very satisfied. Frustrating. I'm very, very satisfied that Heath mentioned that Brianna picked up on this very same thing and is going to be talking about it on Tuesday. It is clearly, it needs reorganization.
Yes.
I mean, it needs so much more than that, but it clearly needs reorganization.
So you and I have been bloviating. Why don't we go to some of the chat?
Yeah.
Sure, there's a ton of people who have a ton to say.
So I have some start comments here from Frogger. He says, or they say, I apologize, I don't know what to call you, so I will say they. Jinx is most likely going to Demacia, where she's going to meet Lux. This is what happens in the lore.
Yeah, okay,
I'm sure that we're going to see Jinx again, right? Like it's going to be a big emotional pop in whatever other.
That's the thing. It feels like
this series they give us.
It feels like this was leading into a season 3, which we know we're not going to get.
Yes.
So anyway.
And then same thing with the Three-Eyed Raven. The Ravens are Eyes of Realm or Swain, depending on the new timeline. Yep, okay, I actually have mentioned Swain before. I mentioned him in relation with the Black Rose and LeBlanc, so I agree with this.
Which is all great for people who know the lore.
Yeah, it's great for me because I know the lore, but for you at the end of the show, it's just a three-eyed crow. For all you know, that's what every crow in Runeterra looks like.
It's not, because we saw plenty of crows in the first season. This one has red eyes and 3 of them on each side. So I figured it was probably, apparently LeBlanc is the name of the mage who was causing the chains in the first place. I figured it was her for whatever reason.
Right.
So apparently Mel's golden explosion to quote unquote save Ambessa that didn't save her didn't actually kill the mage either. And now they're both going to Noxus together. It doesn't...
Yeah, well, hey, we'll see what they got in store. I love League of Legends. I love the game. I love the lore. I love the characters. So I'm on board for whatever their next story is. I will unfortunately not be as optimistic, but I will watch. I will absolutely watch, whether it's on Netflix. I think Netflix has already said they're not buying anymore. So I don't know. Maybe Riot will buy it themselves and they'll just toss it up on their League server or something, make it watchable through the game client. Then here, Swain is leader of Noxus. Yep, made a deal with the demon in exchange for the invasion of Ionia. I am aware of that. Let's see here. His eye wasn't healed. This is talking about Silco. His eye wasn't healed. He was wearing makeup to cover his eye scar. He does that in the main universe too. But his eye was blue. If
you're talking about the actual flashback / forward or sideways or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
Multiverse. His eye was obviously to the point where he didn't require regular injections of shimmer into it like he did in the main timeline.
Well, in the original season, and in the first season, it was black with orange.
It doesn't make any sense anyway, because he had already industrialized shimmer to the point where he was gearing up for a war with Piltover. How did Vi dying stop that? It doesn't. It just undercuts so many characters. Anyway, I'm sorry. I could go on and on.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Episode 7 to me is an absolute travesty in season 2 for as stellar and outstanding and innovative and impactful as episode 7, The Boy Savior, was in season 1. Episode 7 of season 2 is the polar opposite in every respect.
Yes.
It's so bad, in my opinion.
Find some more comments here. So,
I'm going to stop talking about it because I just loathe it so bad.
I don't blame you. All right. Wow, we had so many comments. Thank you, everyone, for being here and participating.
Yeah, I apologize that we haven't been paying as much attention to as we.
No, they knew we were getting to them at the end. They're all fine, right? So let's see. Micah says, I think the final act of season 2 has a lot going for it, and it pays off a lot. That was confusing before, but it definitely seems like a writing backward approach.
I felt just as confused by the end of it as I did at the start of it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the Black Rose was doing there, what their goals were, what they hoped to accomplish. I have no idea why Mbessa was there to try and stop them or what she thought she was going to do to stop them. I have no idea how. There's just a bunch I have no idea about, and it's just because of bad writing.
He follows up with, that can be a fine way to go about things if the quality is good throughout, but the first act is a bit messier with increasing quality afterward. Act 3 has some flaws, but a lot is preference. I don't know if I agree with that. I know
Doug doesn't.
There are some things in Act 3 that I think we can call definitively rushed, definitively sparse, and definitively poorly realized. I don't want to say bad, because I understand working on something like this with a huge budget and a very tight time crunch can yield these results. So I'm not criticizing anyone's work. I'm not criticizing any of the individuals who were on the show, but there are clear missteps that took place, and I don't think that it has a lot to do with preference. Some surely does. The difference that Sable and I have between episode 7. I can forgive a lot of episode 7. He absolutely cannot. And so that does come down to preference, but I think that a lot of it doesn't. And even then, even when we were discussing our issues, we pretty much foundationally agreed on the things that were at issue. It was just a matter of my being able to forgive them and his not being able to. So we agreed on all the stuff that was not working.
A lot of it is a matter of timing too.
Yes,
but there is also a lot of it too is a matter of setup and like, where the hell did Maddie's betrayal come from? She's ready to shoot Caitlin in the back of the head. What?
Yeah.
Where did that happen? We had no indication that was going to happen.
And you know what? I have that in my notes too. What do I say? What I say, Maddie's betrayal and death is cheap. Because it doesn't come from anywhere.
Ridiculous.
It was like they kind of set it up because it's like, oh, Vi and Kate are supposed to be together. I don't like this Maddie and Kate thing. And so she ends up being a betrayer and shooting herself in the head at the end. And it's just
here's a way it could have worked. And I was actually saying this over on Schnee's server just before we got on the stream here tonight. Here's a way it could have worked is if we had eliminated Act 1 and we had time jumped to episode 2 for years. Like another 6 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Maddie was Marcus' daughter. And we didn't have the affair between her and Kate because the age difference might have been weird. But that betrayal at the end would have made a whole lot damn more sense.
Oh, okay, yeah. That would to tie it into the betrayal? Sure, I can see that.
That would have made a whole damn lot more sense if Marcus' daughter joined the Enforcers and had a grudge against Caitlin the whole freaking time and was close to her because, hey, I can help you,
keep your enemies close.
Keep your enemies close.
Your friends close.
I can, you got to be careful of this Mbessa. She's bad news, but I can help you keep an eye on her and yada, yada. And then, then that would have made a lot more sense. And she even had the same color hair.
Yeah. Micah says, again, so League of Legends has had alternate universes since pretty much the beginning. So if they didn't touch on it, a lot of League of Legends fans would have been disappointed. So the medias of that. So here's the thing with that, though, right? They have alternate universes to explain different skins, right? Yeah. That's marketing. That's not actual lore. And so while I do certainly like some of the alternate universe, like I love KDA. I love the pop, the pop element to the different bands. There's several other bands too. There's Pentakill. There's the one that Casente's in. I can't remember. Like Echo's in the band too. I can't remember what it's called. But like I love all of that stuff. I think it's great. But it's not necessarily lore heavy. It's literally just like we wanted to dress these guys up like they were in a band, so we're going to say it comes from an alternate universe. Like it's not. It's a little messy.
It's cosplay.
So again, Micah, thank you.
I mean, Pop Stars is a banger for sure. Like,
yeah.
I love the music
all of the
video.
KBA songs are bangers. I absolutely love them. They're just great.
It's not. It doesn't have any relevance to Arcane as a television series at all.
Or even League of Legends as
League of Legends is a greater whole.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
Like I says, I think episode 7 also had a bit of freedom from past mistakes. I guess speaking to the freedom theme that I had identified, Echo's tip sparked everything off. And then an alternate universe, yes, Vi died. However, everything else was better. We addressed this. We kind of addressed this. It was not effectively communicated that Hextech was the issue. What it ended up feeling like was that Vi living was the issue, that Vi screwed everything up. And that's not I don't think that's what they were actually communicating, but that's kind of how it landed. So
it's not what they were trying. I agree that it's not what they were trying to say. Like, obviously Hextech is the problem, right? But the only difference, like the demarcation point between those two timelines, is Vi dying in Jace's penthouse. The explosion kills her, and everybody else gets to live happily ever after.
Yeah,
that's bad.
Yeah, it's a
really you could not have undermined and gutted season 1's entire point, purpose, messaging, everything about it worse than that. I didn't really land on it after my first watch. That's why I said when I sent my first impression it was ambivalence. My second watch through, I was like, I cannot forgive this.
Fiery dislike
at a fundamental level. From never let Amanda Overton touch a goddamn script again on her.
I don't know what else she's done. So I know that what she's done.
I don't either. But I know what she did on this season.
This show. Well, I know what she's done in the context of this show is not well received, but I don't know what else she's written, and so I don't want to say, out of hand, because I'm not familiar with her work. I can say that the episodes that she wrote, I didn't really care for.
I don't care about her other work. I just know that she may have helped them to rein in and focus the first season. That's fine. That's what a story consultant does. But for whatever reason, she does not understand Arcane at a fundamental level. Both of her solo written episodes are just absolutely pointless, if not destructive, to everything that came before. I have nothing against her as a person, but her writing on this series is absolutely atrocious.
I think that's reasonable. That's a reasonable take. I didn't, like her episodes too well either. PH says, so I'm not the only one with problems with the writing anymore. I guess not, but you are the only one with problems with the writing from the first season.
Yeah, the first season is very different.
It's extremely different.
There are two very minor things where you could call plot holes, but it's such a character-driven story that they really don't interfere. It's to the point where I haven't really ever found anybody else who has ever noticed them, or at least has never commented on them. Like, number one, how did the biggest plot hole is in episode 4 where Jinx steals the Hex gem before it's revealed to anybody. It would have made a lot more sense for the story for Jace to have gone against Heimerdinger, revealed the Hex gem, then Jinx to have stolen it, and that have been the catalyst that resulted in Heimerdinger being ousted from the council. But that's so minor that most people, I think, don't even notice it. I've never seen anybody commented on it other than myself. So, season 1 rather, not entirely perfect, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's pretty damn close. It's definitely qualifies as a masterpiece in my view. I think it's up there with shows like Breaking Bad and other things that are, so intensely, acutely aware of the details, and they use those details to speak toward different theming elements or different character development elements or plot elements. I think that it's just it is a very universal, it's a holistic style of visual storytelling that I really just love. So I think that, obviously there are some issues with season 1, but they're very forgivable.
Yeah.
Then PH follows up to say, so what's left for me to watch season 2 and like it better? And I think he's being a little cheeky here, saying, he didn't like season 1, but he will like season 2, which kind
if you can, yeah. Like I said, I don't begrudge anybody who does enjoy season 2 of Arcane, and I am actually envious of you. If you're one of the people who really liked it and is watching right now and is like, what the hell are these people talking about? Man, I wish I was you. I really do, because season 1 was an absolute masterpiece. I have watched it probably 12 times over the last 2 years or whatever, since I first watched it. And I've enjoyed it and cried just the way I did for the first time through every single time.
Like there were some times where I welled up for episode 7, especially during the montage.
It was so obviously manipulative. I was just
it was obviously manipulative, but it worked on me, right? Like you can be aware that you're being manipulated and still be manipulated.
The only part of season 2.
It was especially with Heimerdinger's song. As Heimerdinger was playing his song and the lyrics were unfolding, and we were watching Echo walk through this world that could have been, even though there was a very awful message hanging over what was taking place, it still hit me. So, if I'm going to rewatch an episode, it'll be episode 7. And the reason for that, I think, because of how apart from the rest of the series it exists. Like we said earlier, it's cozy. I like the Heimer song. So if I'm going to rewatch something, that's a huge if, it'll probably be that episode. Maybe it'll be some of the Victor elements, but I don't know. It doesn't.
For me, if I ever watch anything again, it's going to be episode 5 and 6, and that 3-second clip of Echo diving through that basilica at the end of episode 9.
It is
that really flying scene. That flying scene's right up there with Test Drive from How to Train Your Dragon. That was Test Drive is better because it's 3 minutes instead of 3 seconds. But just that animation and the sense of motion and weightlessness of actual flying.
I had to
stunning.
I had to pause the episode at that point. This is me pushing the pause button on the remote. I had to pause it, and I had to get up to do something, which is why I paused it. I paused it, got up, came back, and I looked at we were only barely a third of the way through the episode, and it was like, oh, this is great. It's an emotional hit. They're rescued. Jinx and Echo are here to save the day. And then I saw that there was 2/3 of the episode left, and I was like, oh yeah, they ain't saving shit. So Frogger says, I hate how Riot just leaves plot loose ends that they fill in Legends of Runeterra, which is their card game, and then pretend that's sufficient. I don't want to play your shitty card game to experience your complete universe. I want you to tell a full story in the format that you started it in.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hate all of these cross media, like Disney doing it with Star Wars nowadays, or all the other Disney doing it with Marvel nowadays, or you can point to Disney as a prime mover in this sin.
Yes.
But yes, I completely 100% agree with you. Don't force me to go buy the comic books and get the novelization and listen to the radio play and yada 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 and watch the television series just to understand what's going on in the damn movie. Make the freaking story self-contained, because typically the audience that's going to engage with it in one format ain't going to engage with it in the others.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how much you try and push them. This whole cross-media promotion thing is a bunch of BS. So, yeah, Frogger is 100% agree.
We have, let's see here. Oh, shout out to Necrit. I'm glad Necrit does what he does so I don't have to play Legends of Runeterra. Haha. Necrit is a great channel for League of Legends lore.
I actually watched some of his stuff after watching Arcane season 1. I haven't gone back to it much, but that's how I know about whatever that mechanical scarecrow guy is and what Ione is and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. All right, so I'm fast forwarding a little bit here. So Mike, right, and that makes sense. The thing that didn't make sense was Jinx doing what she did in that order. But on the other hand, she already had the first ones that she mostly lost. So going from where I don't understand what is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that refers to. Doing what she did in that order, but
I'm trying to read back up.
Mostly lost, so going for more. I'm not sure what that refers to.
Oh, is it this? I agree with setting up Maddie better, but I think it would make more sense as a lowly soldier for Ambessa. Seemed to be inexperienced and unsure of her position, joining the strike team, and this leads into this, and shown later to have been downplaying herself intentionally. Well, that's the majority of the comments that we have that we didn't address, in media res. So I think that we can definitively give our closing thoughts briefly on season 2 of Arcane. My personal thoughts are, while there are some really strong character moments, some well-realized character moments, and some very effective emotional pops, I think that unfortunately, the way that everything was so tenuously connected, and it was likely due at least in part to rapidity and in part to, instead of telling the story from start to finish, they kind of just, it really feels like they storyboarded a bunch of these character elements and then tried to link them up in the writing, and it was just unsuccessful. So, ultimately, there's a lot that I did really like. I don't really feel like I need multiple watch throughs of this like I do in the first season, because there's so much in the first season that's like, oh, did I miss this? Oh, well, what does this mean? Oh, is this significant? This color it means this over here, but this different shade of color means that over there. When this color is layered over top of this color, it becomes a very intensely intellectual exercise. And because I'm a pretentious jerk, I enjoy that kind of thing. And so I will go back and I will rewatch the first season, and maybe some years down the line, I'll become curious about how I remember season 2, and I'll want to re-engage. And so I'm not putting it off the table that I'm never going to watch it again, but I don't think I need to watch it anytime soon. I think that this reaction is born from a place of hope. It is born from a passion for the characters and the story. I think that everyone involved, including Amanda, we will see again, and I think that we will hopefully get more stories in Runeterra, but better stories in Runeterra. I don't think we will ever get a story as masterful as Arcane Season 1, but I think that there's a lot of stories to tell, and I would hope that they are able to hammer those out a little bit more effectively than just... And you know what? Maybe that was the problem. Maybe they needed to transition to completely new characters in completely new locations to really kind of get there. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case. So we'll see. But that's what I got. And Sable, if you want to go ahead and sum up your your feelings.
I mean, obviously, I've been incredibly negative on season 2 of Arcane through this whole conversation. I was highly critical of Act 1. I laid out how I thought that could have been improved, and setting up Act 2. Act 2 was strong, especially the last 2 episodes, 5 and 6, felt like Arcane, felt like the previous season in a lot of ways. I was skeptical, though, that they had already painted themselves into a corner with not having the time to pay things off in only 3 episodes with all of the stuff they'd already set up. And introducing a bunch of other stuff in the previous 3 episodes that had no real time to actually set up and didn't seem to have any actual relevance, as we ended up seeing. All my worst fears were borne out after watching the 3rd act. And they did not stick the landing, and it is crushing disappointment for me, because I think that the first season of Arcane is one of the greatest television series, as I said earlier, is one of the greatest television series, or seasons of television, I'll say that has ever been put on to, I guess we don't use film anymore, it's all digital, but you know what I mean, ever been put to film. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's lightning in a bottle. It's obviously something they weren't able to capture a second time. And I find that to be I hate to use the word devastating because I didn't think I was that emotionally invested in the outcome, but the fact that I look back at season 2 now with apathy towards watching it again is probably the worst indictment you could have. It's often said that the opposite of love is hate. Is not hate, rather. It is apathy. And that's where I am on it.
Yeah, the opposite of both love and hate is not caring.
Right. So, like, love and hate means you are incredibly invested to the extreme, regardless of how that's expressed. Whereas I literally don't feel like I have the need to ever go back and watch season 2 of Arcane ever again. Despite how beautiful the animation is, despite the gorgeous artwork and art direction, the actual artistry is far inferior than what we got in season 1. I mean, just even like I actually found myself laughing because every fight in season 1 felt like it had a weight. Each hit had impact. And then by episode 9 of season 2, they're having a fight where they are literally weightless. There is no impact at all. It's just them zooming around and with flashing lights. And I was like, this is the like the microcosm of the differences.
This is the metaphor.
This is the metaphor writ large and writ visually for me to point to. So I'm so negative because I had such high hopes. After season 1, I did have a faint worry about how were they going to equal something that was so masterful. But I still had faith that they could. Then after the first 3 episodes, I was like, my faith was definitely shaken. It kind of gave, and maybe that's one of the things that makes me so negative now. I kind of started getting it back after episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah.
I was hoping they could pull off a miracle, and then they just absolutely flubbed it.
Yeah, talk about a roller coaster. This really was a roller coaster, and not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, it was not the roller coaster that we were being taken on as the result of the careful and considered manipulation of my emotions and intellect through character action. It was the quality of the show overall, unfortunately. But yeah, I think this is a good place to end. We've gone on for about 2.25 hours now. I want to thank everyone, even if you were getting your parade rained on the entire time. If you loved season 2, again, please continue loving it. I am very in support of you loving it. So I'm not ever going to try to persuade you. I'm not ever going to try to say that, oh, well, you shouldn't or you should, or that's not my place. This is just my take as a critical film viewer, or our take, I should say. Pardon me. This is our take as critical film viewers, critical series viewers, and I am very happy to support you in your love for the show. I will join you in your, your anticipation for anything new that comes out of the studio or anything that Riot commissions. So I'm still very excited. It's just, this particular time, it was disappointing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating in chat. Thank you, Sable, or TPR, for having this conversation with me over the last 3 weeks. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've had a lot of fun doing it. Hopefully we don't get dislike bombed into oblivion. I've checked the statistics during the stream. It's actually already started, but that's okay. It's just how we genuinely feel. I'm not.
Please, everybody like the stream.
Yeah, like or dislike the stream, share, subscribe. I guess
regardless.
I usually
regardless. Comment.
All right, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you for those who watch after the fact. The last one actually is still going off. People are still watching. It's the highest viewership I've ever had. So thank you very, very much, everyone. Again, TPR, everyone in chat. We will see you on Wednesday, tentatively. I have to still talk to Ben and Jax about that, but I do believe we are going to go through with the stream that we have planned. So we will see you all then. Thank you so much, and we're going to head out.